video, we're going to give you 5 tips to help you improve your timing on the MEE portion of your bar exam. Many people struggle with timing on the essay portion of their exam. So if you do, you are not alone. However, getting ahead of a timing issue is absolutely imperative to being successful on the bar exam. So let's talk about some tips to help you improve. Our first tip is that you should read the call of the question carefully. It's often very helpful that you start there. I know it's a little bit counterintuitive. Instead of starting at the top of the page and working your way down, the call of the question's located at the bottom and it outlines those specific issues you're supposed to be addressing in the question. People who struggle with timing often find it helpful to start there. The very first thing they read is the call of the question. That way those issues that they have to ultimately discuss and evaluate are at the forefront of their mind as they read through the fact pattern. So if you haven't already practiced writing essays using this approach, we recommend you start by reading that call of the question and then the facts. Our next tip is to read the fact pattern very carefully. And you might be thinking to yourself, this doesn't seem like a timing tip. In fact, if I read very carefully, I think I might go slower. Well, hear me out. A lot of people try to rush through the fact pattern, and honestly, this just backfires. Because when they gloss over the facts, it might be very clear from the fact pattern that a fact is not at issue. But when they go to analyze it later, they act like it's ambiguous. And you can see that they end up wasting a lot of time on something that should be very straightforward. And as a result, not only are they losing time, but their answer's going to be less accurate. So we recommend that you actually take the time to read the facts and read them more than once. This way, you can be sure of them, you can know what it's saying, and it's going to make you faster and more efficient in evaluating the issues that are presented. Our next tip to improve your timing on the MEE is to organize your answer around that call of the question. So as I already mentioned in tip number 1, we recommend instead of starting at the top with the fact pattern and working your way down, if you struggle with timing, start with the call of the question, then read the facts. The reason this is so important is because oftentimes there are additional issues raised in the fact pattern that you don't have to address in your answer. Also, some people get in the bad habit of tackling issues that aren't actually being asked. For instance, on a contracts question, the question might have 2 or 3 very pointed issues that they're asking you to address. And if you don't start there and you don't structure your answer around the call of the question, you might fall into the trap of starting with contract formation. And you might write 2 or 3 paragraphs on contract formation simply to find out a few minutes later, when you read the call of the question more closely again, that you didn't have to discuss it at all. So again, if you start with that call of the question and you structure your answer around it, it's going to keep you more focused and therefore you won't be wasting time talking about things that won't get you points. We also recommend that if outlining is helpful for you, do it. If it's not helpful, don't. If you're not sure, practice both ways and see what works for you. One thing I do is I read the call of the question and then in my computer screen, I place headings for each issue that I'm supposed to address. This way it serves as that constant visual reminder that I'm supposed to come back to those headings to address those issues. And again, it keeps me structured and centered on those issues that I'm supposed to be addressing. Our fourth tip to help you improve timing is to omit background information. Background information is great, honestly. It makes you look lawyerly, and if you know what you're talking about, it can really, really reflect that to the grader. But the problem is, if you struggle with timing, background information will often not yield you points. And you're going to be spending time giving that background information, and you're sacrificing time you could be addressing issues that would give you points. So what we recommend you do is just follow our already given tips. Read the call of the question first, then structure your answer around that call of the question and stick to those issues. If you find yourself with extra time, go back later and add that background information because again, that's great. But don't start there because you might be sacrificing your precious time you could be using to answer those questions that will get you points. And our fifth and final tip is practice. Honestly, this tip cannot be overstated. If you are someone who struggles with timing, Your timing issues, I promise, are fixable, but they're only fixable through practice. So you need to practice, practice, practice. What we recommend you do, if you haven't already, is make sure you carve out time in your schedule weekly to practice timed questions. Maybe that's Friday mornings, where you're not listening to a lecture, you're not memorizing, you're not doing multiple choice or MPT practice, you're just writing essays under timed constraints. And many people find it helpful to actually give themselves less than 30 minutes a question. They try to answer the question in 25 minutes. This way they're forcing themselves to work a little bit quicker and they're conditioning themselves, which is the whole purpose behind timed practice. And what you can do with timed practice is add to it and therefore increase your stamina. So for instance, start with 2 timed questions and get them done in under an hour. Then add a 3rd question, then add a 4th question, then add a 5th question. And as you can see, you're just building that stamina so that you're getting ready to perform on test day. We hope you found these 5 tips to improve your timing on the MEE helpful.